Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to Fire Emblem Heroes. Book 2 is coming to a close and it looks like we finally are getting the remaining Book 2 boys in this Fire and Ice summoning banner. It's only a 2 unit banner, which is interesting to say the least, but let's go over their stats and skills and see whether or not these 2 units are worth the orbs. Alright, Serdar is our 10th Axe armored unit. Stat wise, this guy is a min-max monster. Basically, take Hellbendi stats, add armor bonuses onto him, and you get Papa Bendy. He's very slow, but that's going to be beneficial for him because those missing speed points are allocated to more useful stats. Then the rest of his stats across the board are excellent as well. 50 HP is about average for an armored melee. 39 attack ranks him 3rd highest in attack, while a super boon in attack ranks him 2nd highest, so he's really strong. He's going to hit very hard. Base defense is 40, which ranks him 2nd alongside Spooky Myrrh and Valentine's Hector. However, defense is his 2nd super boon stat, and with that boon, he would be ranked number 1. Then he has 33 res. Considering how great his other stats are, 33 res is pretty generous. Last thing I want to mention is that he naturally has 179 BST with the potential to reach 180 from either an attack or defense super boon. And because he has 2 unique skills, that means he will be our highest scoring green unit from now moving forward. His unique weapon is Sinmara. I absolutely love this weapon. First, it grants 3 defense passively, which means that he could very well have 47 defense with a defense super boon, excluding other skills, which is nuts if you really think about it. The second part deals 20 damage to foes within 2 spaces at the start of every turn. Just to clarify, this does mean it activates at the start of each phase. So first of all, I think this effect will be very annoying to play against, but it can also be easily played around. It really depends on your team composition. I guess I'll start with why it might be annoying. In Arena, under the player's control, it's easier to get kills with enemy phase units, right? So if you're facing against Papa Bendy and you place your bonus unit 2 spaces away from him, trying to expect to kill him on the following enemy phase, well, what's going to happen is that your unit will end up taking 20 preemptive damage before he attacks, which may or may not cause your unit to die. The funny thing about this is that it becomes easier to play around if he's equipped with armor boots or has armor march buff. If he's able to move 2 spaces, that means you can just put your unit 3 spaces away from him in order to bait him while avoiding his AoE. Now, under the player's control, I think this effect is busted, especially against armored teams in Arena. You can literally just keep kiting enemies and make them take 20 damage every turn until they're low enough to get finished off by a single attack. I think against ranged foes is where it kinda sucks, but it's really useful versus melees. Now that was all arena talk. I think where this weapon really shines is on Aether Raid defensive teams. Papa Bendy is pretty good on defensive setups just because of his stat line. You can just use him in many various ways. You can build him to 1-round KO, or you can build him to stall out turns because he's such an incredible tank. Honestly, the AoE effect from his weapon is just icing on the cake. New A skill is Steady Stance 4. It grants +8 defense on enemy phase and has guard essentially. Obviously an amazing skill for very slow units. It basically reduces 16 physical damage if the foe doubles. In addition, it has guard, therefore less specials are going to activate, which increases your unit's survivability. The big takeaway here is that this skill lets you run guard without having to run guard in the B slot. You can combine it with Worry Fighter for Aether Raid stalling strategies. It also pairs well with Ventral Fighter for general enemy phase 1-round KOing builds. His unique C skill is Surtr's Menace. So not only do units 2 spaces from him take 20 damage, but Surtr himself will gain 4 in attack speed, defense, and resistance while inflicting 4 in those same stats on the foes. This skill basically grants him 8 extra damage, or 16 if he doubles, and it reduces 16 damage. 32 combined physical reduction if we combine the effects from Steady Stance 4. This guy will be incredibly tanky if everything goes right for him. I think if you want a clean shot at 1-round KOing him, you better have an armor slaying unit or a red dragon somewhere in your barracks. Trained up red mage could also work. Actually, red mages are probably a more ideal counter to him just because I think most players will opt to go for a minus resistance bane on him. Someone like Lena with an AoE special, for example, could completely obliterate him. The rest of his skills are Bonfire and Worry Fighter. Serdar is practically the green version of Spooky Myrrh and Legendary Tiki, not in terms of stat spreads, but in terms of an armor unit reaching 180 BST. He's going to be great to use for pretty much every mode in the game, and he's also going to be very fun to use because of his weapon, that's for sure. The green armor category does have a bunch of amazing units available, but I think Serdar is unique enough to the point where that shouldn't devalue him in any way. As for key IVs, if you want to summon him with 180 BST, then there's only 2 combinations and they both require a Bane resistance. It's either plus attack with minus res or plus defense with minus res. If you don't care about BST in arena, maybe you want to summon him for ether rays perhaps, then go for minus speed with a boon in attack, defense, or res. Since this guy has such an incredible stat line, it's pretty hard to get a bad IV combination for him. Everything is pretty usable. The worst you can probably get is minus attack plus speed, but even then it's still usable. Okay, next is the Lolly. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, so we're just going to refer to her as Yogurt. She has 38 HP, 33 attack, 38 speed, 22 defense, and 20 resistance. These are just okay stats. I wouldn't say they're crazy or anything, it's obviously glass cannon. She has a speed oriented offensive spread with low defenses. Her being a color dagger is going to help her a lot, especially if you don't pull her with plus attack. Her color is also going to help mitigate damage on the defensive end. Her weapon is, I don't know how to pronounce it, so we're going to call it S Yogurt. It grants 3 speed passively, then if the unit speed is greater than the foe's, it grants 4 attack and speed during combat. Pretty boring effect, but it is kinda useful in a way. Red units are generally very fast, in particular the sword units. Yogurt is a blue unit, so obviously her targets will be red, but does she have the stats to compete with them? Yes, she does. Except that when we start talking about the sword units with 40 speed, like Carla for example, then it becomes 50-50 on whether Yogurt can double or not. In those situations, it will depend on their IVs and builds. You see, I would recommend swapping out her weapon for something better like one of the Mayugi weapons, but those weapons are hard to get because they are seasonal. That's pretty much the problem with dagger units in a nutshell. Her new A skill is pretty neat. It's called Sorcery Blade. At the start of combat, if a unit is adjacent to a magic ally, calculates damage using the lower of foe's defense or resistance. So it's basically adaptive damage similar to Felicia's Plate and the breath weapons, and I believe this skill can only be inherited by infantry swords, axes, lances, bows, and daggers. So because the condition of this effect requires the unit to be next to a magic ally, I feel like this skill is only good on enemy phase melees or player phase range units. It doesn't really make sense to use this skill to target range foes because most of them either have low defense already or they have balanced bulk. I think its main purpose is to use against armored units, especially Papa Bendy and other units running steady stance 4. Overall, I don't think it's amazing, mainly because it takes up the A slot, but it's not bad. It does make bows and daggers a little bit more relevant in the current quote-quote meta. The rest of her skills are Glimmer, Chill Speed, and Speed Tactic. So Yogurt doesn't impact the game as much as Papa Bendy. Dagger units in general are just very underwhelming due to the sheer low amount of daggers available. Most of the good ones are seasonal locked. It's also just hard for them to stay relevant due to the popularity of armored and dragon units. However, Sorcery Blade does make things a little bit interesting. I don't think it alone makes a big difference, but if you can build a team with a lot of buff synergy, then it has a lot of potential. Key boons for Yogurt are going to be plus attack or plus speed. Best Bane is defense or res, depending on what kind of class you're building her to counter. That's it for the review. I'm not going to do a banner ranking because there's only 2 units. I think it's apparent that the best unit in this banner is Serdar. He just has more impact, plain and simple. Even though that's the case, I do believe that they are both worth summoning for. Serdar is great as a unit and as fodder. On the other hand, Yogurt not so much as a unit, she's just okay, but she's even better as skill fodder. In my personal opinion, I do think that this banner is definitely a good one to summon from. Do keep in mind though that there's a legendary banner in the week, so if you're interested in that, then you should save your orbs until then before spending anything on this banner. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Shuffle 寂しくて恋しくてさ